Hello, and welcome to another video. So I'm kind of in my flop era. And by flop era, I do mean a reading slump. Out of all of the books I've read so far this year, my average star rating has been 2.88 stars. That's grim. I haven't given a book 4 stars or higher since December of 2025. And now I'm starting to get scared. I'm beginning to feel like, what if I never enjoy another book again? What if I've just completely lost my love of reading? That can't happen. And that's why we're here today. So because I can't keep thoughts just contained in my head, I have to talk about them, and more than talk, I have to complain about them. I've been complaining to my mother about how every book I've read has been a flop. Okay, that's not entirely fair. They haven't all been flops, but I haven't truly loved or enjoyed any of them. And she said to me, granted half jokingly, what if I'm the problem? What if I just don't know how to pick a good book? Okay, well, maybe she has a point. Maybe everything that comes out of this machine for the foreseeable future is ultimately going to be a failure. So what do I do about this? Well, today I'm going to start a little experiment. I am going to choose 3 books outside of my typical TBR pool, let's say, and see if any of them are actually good. So the first book I read is going to be a fantasy, the next book I'm going to read is going to be sci-fi, and the third book I'm going to read is going to be my mom's choice, because she was the catalyst for this entire thing. Fantasy and sci-fi aren't necessarily genres that I gravitate to or tend to enjoy in my past experiences, and the Venn diagram of my mother's and my book interests, let's just say it's not a circle. So I'm not really sure how this is going to go, but it can't go much worse than it already has been, so there's that. Am I confident? No. Am I optimistic? Like, maybe slightly. Ultimately, my goal for this experiment is to raise my average star rating to 3 stars or higher and rank at least one book 4 stars or higher. Can it be done? We'll see. And with all that being said, let's talk about the first book in this experiment. Okay, so for my first genre in this experiment, I'm going with fantasy, as I mentioned, and for my fantasy novel, I chose One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. So initially, I planned to read what I consider, at least from an outsider's perspective, one of the big 3 in fantasy right now: A Court of Thorns and Roses, Fourth Wing, or Quicksilver. And I know that fantasy readers are probably mad at me right now because those books are romantasy and they are generally polarizing ones at that, but I figured it would be a fairly good jumping off point. However, I just know that I wouldn't be able to read any of those books fairly or objectively. I've seen plenty of rant reviews on each of them, and I know that I'd be going in with my own preconceived notions. With One Dark Window, I at least feel like there might be a chance that I'll like it. I've seen people on BookTube gush over it, I know people in my personal life who really love it, and it has a 4.27 average star rating on Storygraph. Plus, the vibes of this book seem generally aligned to my taste. I think it's going to be spooky and atmospheric, or at least I hope so. Here's a general synopsis of the plot. There is a maiden named Elspeth who lives in the Kingdom of Blunder, and the Kingdom of Blunder is under a sort of curse. And let me tell you, when I downloaded the book and I saw that it did not have a map at the beginning, I was so thankful. I was so glad, because when I'm in the bookstore and I open a book and I see a map, I close it, I put it back on the shelf. So already, that is a good sign. Magic in this kingdom comes at a cost. For Elspeth, she has a monster named the Nightmare, called the Nightmare. I don't know if the Nightmare is his official name, but he has been living in her mind, and although he's not all bad, he gives her strength, he helps her, he protects her, he is also slowly taking over her mind. And when I read that there was a monster living in Elspeth's head, I need a little bit more detail, because I'm not sure how I'm supposed to be imagining this. Can she just feel him and sense him? Does she actually see a monster in her head? And how does that work? I have questions and I hope they're answered. But when Elspeth meets a mysterious highwayman and his ragtag team of thieves, her life takes a drastic turn and she can finally see a way to cast the nightmare out of her head for good. And this is kind of confusing, but from my understanding, if Elspeth, the highwayman who is also the king's nephew, and the rest of their team can find these 12 Providence cards and unite them before the solstice, they will cast the dark magic out of Blunder. And listen, my mind is not attuned to fantasy writing. When I read Ancient Spirit, Providence Cards, Cursed Kingdom, I was like, I don't know about this. But that's the point. I don't know about this. Maybe once I do know about it, I'll love it. We'll see. So now that you and I have a general understanding of the plot, I'm going to go ahead and start reading and we'll chat a bit more once I've finished. I'll provide you with my general thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc. Let's start. Okay, I finished the book, so let's talk about One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I gave it 2.5 stars. Abysmal, I know. Shocking, maybe. But this book was just not it for me. Admittedly, I had high expectations. There were plenty of people both in my personal life and online who loved this book, and I thought I might be one of them. And although I don't consider myself to be a fantasy enjoyer, obviously because that's basically the point of this video, I truly thought I was setting myself up for success. I chose a book that people I trust have enjoyed, and it generally fit my vibe. Spooky atmosphere, monsters, etc., etc. Well, it turns out that everyone is wrong and you can't trust anyone. I know that objectively this book must range from semi-decent to actually good because people love it so much and the average rating is so high, so I have to believe this is a me issue. But let's talk about these issues. When I finished this book, I truly felt nothing. Well, except relief. But I felt nothing throughout the process of reading this book. I felt nothing for the characters, I didn't care about the plot, it truly just felt like something that was happening to me. The writing was fine, I guess. I do have some nitpicks though. One, and this is a general pet peeve of mine, I hate when authors make an entire paragraph just one sentence for dramatic effect, but then ruin that dramatic effect by doing it several times throughout the course of the book. Or if the author does the one sentence paragraph for dramatic effect, but then the actual sentence isn't really that interesting or groundbreaking or important, Rachel Gillig is guilty of doing both. 2, I hated the excerpts from the Old Book of Alders at the beginning of every chapter. And for those of you who haven't read One Dark Window, the Old Book of Alders is basically this ancient folkloric text that explains the history of Blunder as well as how the central magic system, in this case the Providence cards, works. And I understand this narrative device to an extent. It definitely helps with world building, but it primarily felt like a way to pad out the word count, especially when many of the excerpts began and ended with the same sentence. For example, a charm is neither living nor dead. When an animal born of Blunder dies of age, bury it in deep soil. When the soil sprouts seed, unearth it. Take from the animal of peace no greater than the palm of your hand. Whether bone, hair, or feather, your charm is a safeguard in the mist, for the animals of Blunder remain free of the spirit's snare. A charm is neither living nor dead. Please tell me why we needed to repeat that sentence, if not to increase the word count. The magic system is cool, I suppose. I'm basically just parroting what I've read people online say because I, like I have said previously, don't have a mind that is attuned to fantasy. So when I read it, I don't really think about whether or not the magic system is good. I didn't think it was bad, so I guess I thought it was good. I felt like the characters were really flat and one-dimensional, and I think this is at least partially due to the sheer number of characters included. We have Elspeth, our main character. We have Raven, our love interest. Raven with a Y. Gross. We have our merry band of misfits. We have Raven's parents. We have Raven's cousin. We have Raven's brother, and I think also his sister. We have Elspeth's parents. We have Elspeth's, I hate saying that name over and over again, stepmother. We have Elspeth's half-siblings. We have her aunt and uncle and cousin. We have the king. We have the primary bad guy. We have the secondary bad guy. And we have the monster living in Elspeth's head. Don't make me say that name anymore. Because we have so many characters, we only know like 1 or 2 primary traits for each of them. Even Elspeth and Raven, who are our MCs, don't feel like real people. I can't tell you a singular trait about Elspeth. She's not particularly brave, she's not very clever. I mean, we're told at some points that she's beautiful, so I guess there's that. There's no character development throughout the course of the novel. I felt like Elspeth and Raven were still the same people that they started out as, except that by the end they were in love, and as I mentioned throughout the course of the novel, Elspeth's mind is being taken over by an ancient monster. So I guess she changes in that way. I also understand that this book was supposed to be atmospheric and gloomy, but I didn't really get that, and I desperately wanted to. We're told about these settings, the creepy, decaying Castle U, the moss-covered ruins, the ancient village enveloped in a sinister mist, but I couldn't truly feel it. Also, if I read the word salt one more time, I was going to start tearing out my hair. We need to stop talking about salt. I literally felt like every 2 pages, Rachel Gillig had to mention salt, and I was sick of it. So yeah, that was my experience reading One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I was so disappointed because I really thought I was going to enjoy this book. But maybe to wrap up this portion of the video, I'll talk about something I did like. I liked that both protagonists had black hair. I feel like that's fairly uncommon, and I enjoy when characters aren't blonde. However, just know when I say that, I am never talking about my beautiful angel Lestat de Liancourt, nor his son Ilya Rozanov,
I want the cover of the fucking game,
nor the Holy Spirit Yekaterina Petrovna Zamolochikova.
Party.
And with that, let's move on to the next book. Okay, for my sci-fi book, I'm going with All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is the first book in the Murderbot series. This is another one that I've heard really positive things about, although I did hear great things about the last book, and look how that turned out. And really, there was no specific reason other than that for choosing this book. I feel like with fantasy, I can try to find things that align with my taste, but sci-fi is a whole new frontier. I have no idea what I might like or dislike within this genre. So for the plot synopsis, All Systems Red is about a sentient security android who has privately named himself Murderbot. He's hacked his overriding governor module so he can, at least from my understanding, make decisions as he chooses. However, the company that owns him isn't aware of this. Murderbot's been hired out by a team of scientists completing research on a distant planet, but all he really wants is to be left alone, which is completely valid. However, when a neighboring mission on the planet goes dark, it's up to Murderbot and the team to figure out what's truly happening. This doesn't necessarily sound interesting to me, but like I said, it has good reviews, people seem to find it to be fairly funny, and it's only 152 pages. So let's get into it. Well, I'm pleased to tell you that All Systems Red was an improvement. I was hopeful that this book was going to be good, but I didn't necessarily have high expectations because I legitimately didn't know what to expect from a sci-fi book. Unlike with One Dark Window, I think that people were generally correct in their ratings and assessments. I mean, obviously the book had its faults, as most, if not all, books do, but I liked it. I found it adequately funny and charming. I liked the writing style because it was basically extremely easy to read. I mean, it's humorous, it's conversational, and I feel like you immediately have a pretty firm understanding of who Murderbot is and what motivates him. But beyond that, we get to see Murderbot grow and change. When we start the novel, he's this grumpy, curmudgeonly android who has no affection whatsoever for the humans around him. All he wants to do is be left alone to watch his downloaded television programs. Pretty immediately, we're thrown into the action, and Murderbot must save 2 of the humans that he's assigned to work with. And when Murderbot reviews this footage, he realizes just how good he was at taking care of them. And of course, he initially thinks this is just an automatic reaction that was programmed into him. But slowly, he starts to realize that he's actually beginning to care for his little group of misfit scientists. I've seen some complaints that this book is littered with a sort of cringy millennial humor, but I genuinely don't think it was. And trust me, I would be complaining throughout this entire segment if that was the case. Basically, you finish the book and you're just like, aw, That was nice. I love Murderbot. I love feeling optimism in this dystopian, ultra-capitalistic society. Did I think it was absolutely incredible? No. I did have a few issues with it. One, I didn't necessarily enjoy how we're thrown into this world with very little explanation. I'm trying to figure out where we are, who we are, how we got here, why we're here, and who everyone is. Throughout most of the book, I felt like I was playing catch up to what Murderbot and the other characters already knew, even about basic details like how the society worked. I mean, obviously, I don't want an exposition dump, but I feel like a little more background information could have been useful. And I don't feel like this information was withheld in a way that was intentional or purposeful or in a way that benefited the novel itself. It just felt lazy. And just like in One Dark Window, I felt like we were dealing with too many characters with too few characteristics. And I understand that we're in Murderbot's POV and he doesn't care about the humans around him, but in my mind, I was having to imagine basic formless blobs for some of these characters because we weren't provided any details about them apart from their names. Because this was such a short novel, these weren't massive issues because I felt like I could essentially just power through to the end, and my enjoyment of the book outweighed its problems. I don't necessarily feel motivated to read the rest of the series, but I did have a good time, and I would leave this book with a 3.75 stars. Okay guys, we have an exciting moment in the stew today. My mom is here. She's not going to be on camera, but she is mic'd up and you will likely be able to see her hands as she passes me my third and final book. I have absolutely no idea what this is going to be, so it'll be just as much of a surprise for you as it is for me. Okay, so I'm gonna close my eyes and you can just put it in my hand.
Okay.
Okay. I feel nervous, like I have no idea what it's gonna be, except not crying in H Mart. Okay, it's small. Oh, okay. Okay, this is a good choice.
I hope so. I don't know if you will like it because it's a heartwarming, cozy mystery. You didn't like the Thursday Murder Club.
True. Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not sure if you'll like this one. It's my second choice behind Crying at H Mart. I was slightly tempted to give you something really outrageous that I knew you would never read in a million years.
Like the bookstore of...
No, like Eat, Pray, Love. But I didn't want to ruin my chances of you letting me pick a book for you.
That's really funny. Okay, well, I guess I should show it to camera. This is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, which is a good pick because she read this and liked it. One of my closest friends has also read this and liked it. So I've heard really good things about it. I do like thrillers and mysteries. A fair amount.
It's not, I wouldn't call it a thriller.
Okay.
It's a mystery.
A cozy mystery.
Yes.
Okay.
But not a thriller.
That's fine. And that's fine. And it's fairly short.
Yeah.
So that's, a bonus. It's not Grapes of Wrath. It's not East of
It's
Eden.
not Dan Brown's Secret of Secrets.
I thought you actually might give me a Dan Brown book. I was like, it's possible.
I consider it for a brief moment, but I'm giving you a break.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Wait, do you want to tell me? I kind of know what this book is about, but mostly for the people watching at home, do you want to tell me what this book is about?
Okay, so it's about an elderly Asian, I believe Chinese woman in San Francisco, and she owns a tea shop, and she lives above the tea shop. And one morning she wakes up, comes downstairs to open her shop, and there is a dead body on the floor.
Period.
Yes.
Okay, and then she's going to solve the murder.
She's going to attempt to solve the murder.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Much to the dismay of the police department.
Okay, well, it's not horror and it's not like
It's not vampires.
A slow literary novel about a woman going insane.
No,
but
it's none of that. So we'll see if you like it.
We'll see. Okay, awesome.
It won't bring up any bad feelings. So
I love that. I love not feeling bad feelings. Okay, so that is our third and final book, Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. Mom,
yes.
Thank you for being here in the studio today.
You're welcome.
I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to go thrifting. Bye.
Bye.
Guys, it just keeps getting better. I absolutely loved this book. So of course, I must give credit where credit is due. Mom, I know you're watching, so I just want to say thank you for recommending me the first truly excellent book that I've enjoyed this year. Interestingly, this book features a lot of elements that I don't typically enjoy. First, we have multiple POVs, and usually I find that I enjoy one or two characters way more than the others, and it will inevitably annoy me when we have to move away from their perspective and into someone else's. For example, in the Carry On trilogy, which, can I just say, it's shocking that I have not yet mentioned Carry On this channel, because it's kind of like my ultimate guilty pleasure. Not that I necessarily feel guilt about the things that I find pleasurable, but I know it has its issues. I still absolutely love it. It is one of my greatest comfort reads. But anyways, as much as I enjoy Agatha and Penny in that series, I don't want to hear from them when Simon and Baz are in the throes of a homoerotic enemies to lovers relationship. I just don't. However, I kind of loved everyone in this book equally. I mean, Vera is obviously the main character and the star of the book. Her name is literally in the title. But having said that, I really enjoyed spending time with Julia, Sana, Oliver, and Ricky as well. I genuinely cared about what happened to each of them. Generally, I also dislike if a book is too modern. I mean, obviously, if a plot is going to take place in 2026, even if it's going to take place in 2016, there's going to be texting and internet usage and staring at phones. I mean too modern in the sense that characters are scrolling on Instagram and referencing memes and talking about Taylor Swift's latest album. And this book basically does all of that. I mean, not to spoil anything, but NFTs play a shockingly large role in the plot. And even though this book was published in 2023, it already feels dated. But it was just so lovely that I really didn't care. Jessie Q. Sutanto does such a good job of making her characters feel believable and real, but still incredibly charming and funny, and honestly, that was the best part of this book. We could have just had this cute little found family story, and I would have been fine with that, but I was also compelled by the mystery. Despite being in the POVs of every suspect, I still didn't know if they were actually guilty or how they contributed to the crime. And when I'm reading a mystery or thriller, I try not to guess who the culprit is. I just want to let the story unfold in front of me. So let me tell you that when the killer was actually revealed, I was gagged. And I know it sounds like I'm just prattling on and glazing this book, but you heard my review for One Dark Window. Hopefully you've heard my reviews for other books on this channel. So you know that if I am praising a book like this, I earnestly mean it. I laughed, I almost cried, and I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. So my little experiment is complete. Did it help? Did I learn anything? Well, yes. I set out with two goals. First, to find a book that I legitimately enjoyed, and the second, to raise my average star rating for this year to over 3 stars. And let me tell you, I did both. Honestly, I'm kind of impressed that each book I read ended up being better than the last. Granted, I would say that a majority of books are better than One Dark Window, in my opinion, but still. Will I read more books that are out of my comfort zone? Let's just say that I'll try. Maybe I'll just choose ones that have been vetted by my mother first. And that concludes today's video. As always, I like to end these by highlighting a charity or nonprofit, and this time I'd like to highlight the Center for Reproductive Rights. They're a nonprofit organization that partners with advocates to protect reproductive health, self-determination, and dignity as basic human rights. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.